Well, good morning. It is a blessing to be here. I have two questions though before I start. Number one, is anybody holding anything back? So if they are, let it go so I don't have to preach. And then if you aren't, then are any of you as nervous as I am? Brother Homer asked me today when I walked in, was I excited? And I said no. It's more like nervousness. But they both kind of feel somewhat the same. Um, I want to let you know I'm not an ordained minister, so don't hold me to, too high of a standard here. But I will give you what God's given me. And I don't want to give you any more than He's given me. But before we start, I want you to pray. Pray for me. Pray for the rest of the service. So everybody bow your heads. Lord God, we thank you for this day, Lord, for your love and for your mercy, for all that you've done for us, for always being there, God, when we don't deserve it, God, for always taking care of us and giving us more than we need, God. We thank you just for your love and for your mercy, for all that you've done here today and all that you're going to do. We ask you to touch us, help us be what you have us to be, and then we just ask you, God, amen. Now, Brother Homer gave me this lesson, and I'm going to do it because he asked me to do it. But I'm going to do it my way. I hope you don't mind, Brother Homer. This lesson is all about our nation. It's supposed to be all about our nation. And it is, in God we trust, one nation under God, and that's a lie. That's not even close to being the truth anymore. Our nation is strayed from far left of God, and they don't want anything to do with God. In fact, we try our best to take God out of everything that we do. We take him out of schools, out of courthouses. In fact, some people's taking him out of the church, and church ain't even about God anymore. Our whole nation is backwards. And in God we don't trust. In God we don't even believe. In God we don't even look to. In God we don't pray to. And my whole point of this lesson is not just about our nation, but about the church. I understand how a nation can get derailed because it's a nation. But a church should not be derailed. In fact, if you look back through history, there are tons of nations who have, what is it? Oh, hey, y'all sit down. I'm sorry. I was going to read the scripture. That's why I didn't attempt to sit down yet. But it's fine. You don't have to open your Bibles. I'm going to read you the scripture. Like I said, if you look back through history, there are nations upon nations. In fact, even God's chosen nation forsaken God. But there was always one man or two men, or sometimes a whole 12 men. It depends on the situation and the time. There was always somebody who had faith in God, who trusted in God, and did not stray. But as far as our nation goes, we have tons of different churches, different, beliefs. We have Baptists and the assemblies. We have everything. And we all believe differently. We all think differently. We all decide differently. But if you go through and you look, especially around here, people who say they are saved sometimes aren't saved. People who get up in the pulpit and preach, that does not make them an ordained preacher. It doesn't mean God's called them to preach. And that's where we're failing as a nation. Our nation will never get any better because our churches don't seem they're going to get any better either. If the church doesn't get better, you can't expect the nation to do any better. The nation is failing because the church is failing. Now let's read what David said about the nation whose God is the Lord. And that is Psalm 33 and 12. If you do want to open your Bible, I'm going to read a couple more scriptures so you don't have to open it right now. It says, "Blessed is the nation whose God is Lord, and the people whom he hath chosen for his own inheritance." Blessed is the nation. We can look back in our past few years in our nation, past 8 years, and even before, our nation has lost its blessing. We're not the blessed nation that we used to be. God doesn't take care of, or God does take care of us. He keeps us alive, but he doesn't bless us the way he could be. But whose fault is that? It's our fault. It's our fault. And if you look at it, like I said, it's mostly the church's fault. Our church has begun to slack. Our church has gotten soft. Our church will not preach what is in the Word. Our church preaches what our nation wants to hear. Our churches right now are siding with politics and government because it's easier for them. Well, let's look. Now, this is not about politics. It has nothing to do with politics. In our 8-year administration, 8 year administration with Obama, what went good? Can anybody tell me anything that was so great about that administration? And I don't. It's not about a dislike of Obama. It's not about Obama. But I tell you what, a bunch of things he did not do that was any good. For one, prayer was already out of schools as it was, but he made sure prayer was out of schools. But he made it okay for atheism to be in schools, and you can share that in schools. You can share Buddhism in schools. You can share any other religion besides Christianity in schools. You can share pretty much anything in schools besides Christianity. In fact, you can dress any way you want in schools pretty much now. Your hair can be any color. You can believe in being a vampire if you want to in schools. That's not a problem. Christianity is the problem, or so they say it is. So in 8 years of Obama being president, he went against everything the Bible said. Everything. Gay marriage is fine. It's fine to be gay. Oh, that's great. Gay marriage is everything's fine, right? Well, 8 years, things went downhill. Things are still going downhill. Whether Trump's in office or not, you still have half the world against Trump, or half our country against Trump. Whether he said whatever what he says is Christian or not. Here's the issue with that. Here's the issue with all of it. People just don't want to believe in God. Because believing in God is too complicated. Believing in God goes against the fun of the world or what makes them comfortable. Being a Christian is not about being comfortable. Loving God is not about being comfortable. Comfort kind of goes out the window when you get saved. And I'll tell you why. Because faith makes you uncomfortable. Now, let's look at trust. And that's what it says. In God we trust. Trust, here's what trust is. Trust is a firm belief in the reliability of someone or something, in the truth of someone or something, in the ability of someone or something, in the strength of someone or something. Now, trust and faith. Faith is a synonym of trust. So everything I just read is what faith is. Now, let's get off the nation. The nation is not important right now. Let's look at ourselves. Let's look at the church, this church. How much trust do you have in God? How much faith do you have in God? I ask you that, and it's easy to say, I have a lot of faith in God. I trust God with everything in my life. I trust Him with my whole heart. Sure you do. I'm sure you do. I say the same thing. But it's not as easy as it is being said. I can tell you I trust in God all day and how much faith I have in God all day. But when the right circumstance comes, sometimes you fold under pressure and that faith is gone. I'll tell you why. There are things where God feels like He's not as reliable as you'd like for Him to be. When something goes wrong in your life and you want it done right now. God's reliable. God's going to come, but it doesn't mean He's going to come right now when you really want it. And here's what we do. We say we trust God. You say we have faith in God. Sure we do. But we wait. We wait almost a good hour. And now you know what you're trying to do? I'm trying to fix it for myself because if I can go ahead and get it done, I don't have to worry about it. And I'll tell you exactly how I am as a person. I hate having stuff over my head. When there's something that has to be done, I really just go ahead and do it. Because if I go ahead and do it, I ain't got to think about it later. Well, sometimes God doesn't work like that, and He likes to let it hang a little bit. When it hangs a little bit, it teaches dependency on God. It teaches faith on God. And when you have faith on God, you know He's going to take care of it. But like I said, as a man, I won't do that. I say, you know what? If I can go ahead and do it myself right now, I don't have to worry about it later. I don't have to think about it anymore. Here's what happens, though. I go and try to take care of myself, and I make a bigger mess. Make a bigger mess than what I already had. And most times, you won't stop there. You continue to work on it until it's so big of a mess that your brain can't comprehend it anymore, and now you have no choice but to wait on God and let God fix it. If we would just have faith, if we just have the faith that we said we had in God to begin with, you wouldn't blow the problem up more than it already is blown up. And you just let God come when He's going to come and fix the situation. But I say that's not easy. That's why faith isn't easy. That's why faith is a hard thing if you don't work on it. And it takes a daily thing to work on your faith in God. And you best believe that every day God will give you something to test your faith. Every day. Every day. And I'll tell you one easy one, one simple thing. You wake up, you're late. You're already late. Your day's already starting off. Man, I got to be here. I got to get this done. And then you pull out, and somebody's dragging down the road, and you can't get past them. There's a road. This road's out up here, and now you got to take the long way around to get to work. And all you can think is, I'm going to be late. I'm going to get in trouble. Man, nothing's going right. What am I going to do? You know God's working that out for you. You have to have faith that God's feet. There is a reason you're late. There is a reason that you're not on the road that you think you should be on right now. There might be an accident up there. You might need to be somewhere else at a certain time. You have to have faith that God's working it out. But see, a lot of times we don't have that faith when we get a little upset. We get ticked off and we say, man, if these people don't get out of my way, I'm going to freak out in here. Hurry up, get out of my way, I'm going to be late. And it's easy to feel that way because your faith is kind of out the window right now because you're not thinking about the faith. But see, every day God gives you something to test your faith. His reliability, his truth. How many of you know that everything that God says is true? Everything that's ever been said in the Bible is complete truth. There's not one thing that he said that's not true. If the Bible, when the Bible said, Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me, that's the truth. There's nothing in life that you can't do. His ability. We all know that God is able to do all things. Exceedingly above is what the Bible says, all things. Anything you expect, he can do greater. Look at his strength. There is no strength that matches the strength of our God. No strength. So why do we have problems with faith? And I'm not so much talking about in faith in what God's going to do. What about when God tells you to do something? What happens to faith then? You know he can do it, but you don't want to do it. So many times you're sitting around and you say, well, I'll do anything for the Lord, anything. I have so much faith in God. But when God says, well, I need you to go do this. I need you to go do this. I need you to go do this. I need you to speak in front of these people. You ready to preach? You ready to sing? You ready to teach? And your heart and your mind automatically goes to, nope, I'm not ready to teach. I'm not ready to preach, and I'm not ready to sing. I'm not a good talker. I'm horrible at speaking. I can't speak in front of people. I get so nervous, my mouth just loses it. I get all tangled up. I don't know what in the world to say. And there you go with the excuses. You know who else done that? Moses. Moses was a man of faith, though. We get tangled up, and we tell God what we can and what we cannot do. We tell God that, Lord, I don't know what you expect from me. I don't know what you want me to do, but I can't do it. So find somebody else. Please do find somebody else to do this. When God has something for you to do, he expects you to do it. And when he has something for you to do, don't worry, he's going to make a way. A lot of the excuses, oh, Lord, like we had this camp, and all the time when Mama says something about camps and all this stuff, my mind goes to money. Where's this money going to come from? Because we ain't, we just thank God like that. You can't just throw it out. Well, let me tell you something. If God tells you to do something, he'll give you the money. You ain't got to worry about that. If you're low on money, God's got the money. You ain't got to worry about that. God has more than you need. If you're not a good speaker, don't worry. God will give you the words. He'll give you the thoughts. And he'll give you the strength to say it. If you're shy, you want boldness, God will give you boldness. Now, the thing is, we don't want it. That's just it. You don't want it. You say, okay, well, God, if you help me, I'll do it. But when he gives you the strength, people don't want to do it. They get a little shy, say, well, he's gave it to me, but I still ain't ready. And that's nothing wrong with not being ready, but sometimes you just got to do it anyway. Let's look at David. David was a little boy, and you look, and everything that happened in that story is pretty much improbable. It's kind of just doesn't make sense, even when we did. But it doesn't need to make sense. Nothing that God does needs to make sense to you because it makes sense to him. So when God put David up, he gave him the heart that he had, and he said, you know what, David? This Goliath is making everybody scared. And David said, I don't know why. I don't understand why everybody's so scared. God can take care of it. He said, so you know what? David went out, of course, he went out. And let's look at it. Goliath was 16 foot tall, 16 foot so. David's probably 5 foot, 4 foot. He's still young. Goliath is covered head to toe in armor with maybe this much of a spot on his head. Let's put swords, spears, shields, bow and arrow, whatever. Nobody else had killed Goliath yet. And those things make it pretty hard to kill. Even with a sword and a spear, they couldn't kill him. So he got a sling and a rock. You know how almost impossible it is to sling a rock hard enough to kill a man? It's pretty hard. But see, God didn't call you and equip and leave you unequipped. He may call you unequipped, but he's going to equip you along the way. It weren't David's strength. It weren't how awesome David was. It was God inside the rock and inside the sling that made David who he was. That's why David killed Goliath. Not because of his strength, but because of his faith. Not because of how smart he was, but because of his faith. And that's where we fail. God gives us faith, but we fail to use it. There are a bunch of Goliaths in your life that are going to come. You can fight them, or you can be like his brothers, and you can hide. Now, if you hide, you'll be hiding for the rest of your life. And if David would have never come, they'd have probably never beat Goliath. Goliath would have easily ruled over everybody in there. Now, look at yourselves. We're going to look at 3 different people in the Bible. And I want you to look at yourself. Because our nation's best shape because we're not doing what we're supposed to do. Let's look at our faiths. Let's look at our faith today. We're going to open to Genesis 22, 1 and 3. All right. We all know the story of Abraham. We all know what Abraham done. 22 and 1 says, sometime later, God tested Abraham. And I'm sorry, my book is not King James, so. He said to him, Abraham, here I am. Abraham replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain. I will show you. Early the next morning, Abraham got up, loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. Now, we're going to skip down to verses 10 through 14. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Do not lay a hand on the boy. He said, do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God because you have not withheld from me, your son, your only son. Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, the Lord will provide. And to this day it is said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. And it will be provided. Now let's look at our faith and compare it to Abraham's. Most of y'all have children. I don't have children. I have a brother. I have a couple brothers. Now, let's say God come to me and said, Dan, you got to kill your brother. My mind automatically says no, because I don't want to kill my brother. And here's the thing. When God said to do something, God's always willing to give you something in return. And he'll give you better than what you had. But see, that seems impossible when you have a child. You can't look at your child and say, that's better than your child as of right now. So this was Abraham's he loved Isaac more than Abimelech, Ishmael, of course. So he loved Isaac so much, and this is the son he'd been waiting for, and now God wants him back. Now you put yourself in this place and put yourself in killing your son or daughter, whatever. That's impossible for me. Josh is my only blood brother. So if he said, you need to kill Josh, don't worry, I'll give you another brother just as good as Josh. I don't want another brother as good as Josh. I want Josh. And that's how I feel. That's where my heart would be. And that's exactly how I feel about the situation. But see, that's where faith comes in. See, Abraham had the faith, and he said, you know what? You gave him to me. You can have him back. He's yours. He's not really mine. He's yours. So when he went up on the mountain to sacrifice Isaac, he had the faith to go through with everything he'd done. He had tied him up, and he had the wood there, and he was ready to kill him and then burn him up to God. He lifted his knife, but God stopped him. You know why? God already seen he was going to do it. He didn't have to do it. God seen he was going to do it. He had the faith, so God blessed him, and God provided. In our life, God does the same thing. He provides. When he tells you to do something, sometimes you just got to do it and just go all the way through until the very end. When you get to the very end, God will take care of the rest. When you're not strong enough to get through the end, God will take care of the rest. God provided for Abraham the same way he will for us. But how many of us could have done that? I can tell you right now, even though I want to say I could because I know what he done for Abraham, I hope he would do the same for me. Right. But what if he doesn't? There's always that what if. What if he doesn't? Can I say I could do that? I don't know. That's pretty tough. I don't have a son, but I have a brother. I don't know. I could tell you right now, it would be the hardest thing in the world for me to have to kill Josh. So look at yourself. Ask yourself that question. Could you have done that? Let's look at Job. Everybody knows what Job went through. Job struggled. In fact, I don't think there's a man in the Bible who struggled as much as him besides the good Lord himself. Job went through a lot. Let's look at everything he lost. And there's a lot. So I'm going to read the beginning of this. At its beginning, Job seems to be a book about human suffering. And it is. That's what it seems. But it's not about human suffering. It is about God's sovereignty. God's sovereignty throughout the whole book is what's important in Job's book. In a matter of hours, Job lost everything that was important to him, except his own life and his wife. But he held fast to his integrity, determined to unravel the mystery of why a man who had done nothing and try to live utmost and upright life would be treated like this by God. Let's put ourselves in Job's shoes. Let's say you go home today, all your children are dead, your house is gone, you have absolutely nothing. And on top of that, your skin is starting to fall off the bones. Your flesh is literally peeling off, and it feels like you could die at any second. And you don't go through that for a day, and going through it for a day be rough. But imagine you go through it for one day, and you're waiting on God to come, and he doesn't come. So the second day, you're still waiting. You wait all day, and God doesn't come. You're on your third day, and God still hasn't come. It's been 2 weeks in, and God still has not showed up to fix anything. Where's your faith at? How easy would it be for you to say, oh, yeah, I'd still be fine. I still trust God that much. You can't say that. You cannot sit and tell me that you would not be questioning God at this moment, saying, God, where are you? Why have you not come here to look at me, to check on me? Because I can tell you I couldn't. If I was in that kind of agony from sun up to sundown, with friends who say they love you, but these friends show up and criticize you about all the things that you supposedly done. So you have that, and then your wife tells you to curse God and then die. Think about that. So now you have, pretty much absolutely nothing, and you suffer day in and day out. Now, how easy is it to say, yeah, God, I still trust you. I still trust you to work it out. A lot of people gives up. A lot of people will give up at that point because it feels like God is not there and God is not ever going to show up. Like God is never going to come. But God always does come. Now, see, Job looked for answers the whole time. But you know what? God never gave Job an answer. God never said, Job, I've done this because of this. God, I've done this because of this. Job sat and suffered and never got an answer from God or why, any reason he suffered. But you know what God did do? God gave everything back to Job. God fixed everything for Job. He took care of everything that he took away and gave him double back. Now, the faith was all about waiting until that moment. Getting to that point. In life, you may never know what's going on or what's happening to you, but you have to have faith to get through, to fight through, to make it through. If you give up, if you fold before the end, it didn't do you any good. Paul said to run the race with patience. And these are long races. These races ain't short. We're not doing sprints. It's like a marathon. You just run until it's over. It's not easy to run it. Sometimes in life, your feet start to hurt. Your leg muscles start to ache. Your lungs, you can't get enough breath to make it to the next step. But you gotta fight through. You gotta have the faith that God's gonna give you the strength to take the next step, to take the next breath. Your feet are gonna be okay. Don't worry. It's tough, but you got to have the faith to get through. Let's look now last at Paul. Paul started out as a man who persecuted Christians, who done wrong to everybody. Now, that was Saul, excuse me. Saul was the evil one. Saul changed. Saul became Paul. Now, just because you become different in God's eyes does not mean you become different in a human's eyes. You may be different to God, but everybody else was still the same person you was until proven different. Well, imagine you have to go through and look at everybody you ever beat up, killed, people's families. You may have killed their children, and they lived. Now God asks you to go preach to them. Now, how easy would that be? Now the whole world's going to look at you and think, who does this hypocrite think he is coming back here to preach to me? And it's the truth, because let me tell you, if you come here and kill my little brother and try to preach to me, you're out of luck, because I'm not going to pay you any attention. You get out of my face and leave. That's about exactly how I feel right there. And that's about how they felt when they come in and try to preach to them. But see, God said, do it anyway, Paul. Do it anyway. I will take care of the rest. Faith is going anyway, even though people look at you that way. And not just that, we're going to read 2 Corinthians 11 and 24 and see what they do to him there. In fact, we're going to look at all the things that happened to Paul during his missionary journeys. You don't have to open it. I'm just going to read it to you. 24 says, 5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was pelted with stones. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in open sea. I have been constantly on the move. I have been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from fellow Jews, in danger from Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, and in danger from false believers. I have labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst and have often gone without food. I have been cold and naked. Beside everything else, I face daily the pressure of my concern It's for all the churches. Who is weak, and I do not feel weak, who is led into sin, and I do not inwardly burn. If I must boast, I will boast on the things that show my weakness, that God and Father of the Lord Jesus, who is to be praised forever, knows that I am not lying. In Damascus, the governor under King Aretas and the city of Damascus guarded in order to arrest me, but I was lowered in a basket from window, and the wall slipped through his hands. Everything that Paul did was all about faith. Now you can put yourself in Paul's shoes. We're missionaries. We go out, but it's got nothing on what Paul did. They don't stone us, and they don't beat us with lashes. They don't tie us up and try to kill us. I think the worst thing that happens to us is when you go to somebody's door and you knock, and they look at you and close the door back. And I mean, don't get me wrong, that hurts. That's rough. That's rough. So you go to try to talk to somebody and help somebody, and they don't want your help, but they don't want to talk to you. That's rough. But nothing like Paul did. You heard Paul got 39 lashes. He was stoned. He was beaten with rods. He was shipwrecked. He was never comfortable in his own life. He was comfortable in working spiritually, but as far as a physical comfort, he didn't have that. In fact, every day he seemed to be out of his comfort zone, and that's where faith will take you, out of your comfort zone, every day. But that's why, like I said, that's why it's so hard to have faith, to have a trust in God, is because it takes you out of your comfort zone. Imagine being in Paul's shoes. Put yourself in Paul's shoes and go be a missionary. Go anywhere. Go to Korea. Go to South Korea. Go to North Korea. Go to those islands. Go to Africa. See how comfortable you will be living in those lives where people don't want to hear about you, and they are willing to kill you because of what you believe in. Well, Paul done that every time he went on the mission field. But see, God took care of Paul. Yeah, he died for what he was doing. Yeah, they killed him. They decapitated Paul. But that didn't stop Paul. Paul knew what he was getting to, and he had faith that God would get him through it. He had faith that no matter where he was going, no matter what he was doing, God was right there next to him. And if they were to kill Paul, it'd just be better for him to go to heaven anyway. He wasn't losing a single thing. But we clean our lives so strongly here that we won't even get out and go talk about God. We're afraid of what people's going to think. We're not even clinging to our lives. We're clinging to face. We're clinging to personality. We're clinging to everything else. And we don't want to go out and help others. We don't want to go knock on doors. We heard Mama say we need to get out and start knocking on doors. People's lives need to be touched, but we don't want to do that. It makes us uncomfortable because people might turn you down. People might laugh at you and slam the door in your face, and it makes you uncomfortable. Faith says it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay. I'll make sure it's okay. It'll all be all right. But we struggle with that. Now compare your life to those three people we just looked at. And there's plenty more in the Bible. Plenty more. Moses, David, Solomon, everybody. You can just look through and see the faith that these men have and look at your own life. We all have been called to do something. God has called every single one of you into a work. He's called every single one of you into some ministry. Whether you're supposed to sing, teach, preach, be missionaries, whatever it is. God's called you to do something. And it's going to make you uncomfortable. It's going to make you extremely uncomfortable. But there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to be uncomfortable. I promise you, you'll get through it. He's called you to do it, and he expects you to do it. When he tells you to do something, like I said before, he's not going to put you somewhere and leave you stranded. He's not going to put you somewhere and not give you what you need to survive. He's not going to put you somewhere and say, oh, well, I got you here, I'm leaving you, I got to do something else. That's not how God works. God will give you everything you need at the right time. And see, that's the thing, is the right time. Because you like to have it ahead of time so you know you got it. But that's not how God works all the time. God's going to let you wait. He's going to say, you know what, I got it. You just wait. It's coming. And it may be the last 30 minutes when you need it, but you better believe you're going to get it. Because that's how God works. Even if it seems like it's 2 minutes late to you, if it's 2 hours late to you, if it's on time for God, don't worry. You have to wait. What he's called you to do, what you're supposed to be in life, you go there. And you have faith God's going to meet you. God's going to go with you. And when he does meet you, he's going to give you everything you need to make it through. So ask yourself, question your life, look at your life, question your faith. How much do you really trust God? God has called us, and I remember this sermon, and I stayed with me for a long time. God said you can do exploits. You can do so much more than what you do. And I say that, and I don't mean just going out preaching. I mean, people with cancer, you can heal that. People that can't walk, With God, you can heal that. With faith in God, you can heal that. And that seems so unreal and so unbelievable because nobody does it. But you can do it. You know, didn't Jesus say it? Jesus said, "What I've done, you can do greater things." Didn't Jesus bring dead back to life? Didn't Jesus walk on the water? Doesn't Jesus take care of all those things? Well, guess what? You can do it too. That's where faith comes in. It's not easy to do. It's not easy to have that kind of faith. It takes time to build that kind of faith. And I'm not saying you can just go out and do it. And maybe you could. If you have that kind of faith, please do go out and do it. Maybe seeing you do it helps somebody else to do it. You can change lives. You want to see cancer healed? You want to see cancer cured? You could be the one to do it. You want to see somebody get up who's lame? You could be the one to do it. You ever want to see a blind man to see? You could be the one to do it. But it's up to you. I remember when I was in church, we've been in church one Sunday, and I was playing the drums, and we had a cousin that get in a bad car accident. She had 2 boys, and they were all in critical shape for a really long time. All of them healed up pretty good except for one boy. He's still in a wheelchair today. But I remember I was sitting in church on Sunday, I was playing the drums, and we went and heard Preacher Matt preach that sermon, "You Can Do Exploits," and it rang in my mind. And I remember sitting, and I remember God telling me, and that little boy got wheeled in, and I remember seeing him come in. I remember God reminded me, and he said, "Dan, you remember that sermon? You can do exploits. You can change things." And I remember getting up, and I asked him to bring him to the front because I knew that if we prayed and we trusted God with the faith that he told us to have, that boy would get up. He would get up and he would walk. And I said it, and I said it in front of everybody, and I just knew that when I finished praying, that when everybody finished praying around that boy, he was going to get up out of that wheelchair and he was going to walk away. But sure enough, there was somebody with some disbelief. They just didn't have the faith, and they decided they wanted to get up and say and share that with the church. And they said, "Oh, he may not get up today, but he might get up one day." I don't need your might. We don't need he might. We know he will. And I felt that. But when I finished praying, we all finished praying, that boy didn't get up. Because of disbelief, I feel like today that boy's still in that wheelchair. Because of disbelief, because of no faith, because we fail, because we don't believe in what God can do, that boy's still in that wheelchair. And that's hard for me. I remember when he was young and all he wanted to do was play sports. All he did was play baseball and basketball, and he loved it. And he can't do that anymore. Who do you blame for that? Who do you blame for somebody not having a faith in a God they say they love and a God they say they have faith in? God can change things, but you have to have the faith that he would do so. You want to see people change? You want to see lives change? It starts in you. It starts in us. It starts in our own faith. Without faith, nothing else matters. Without faith and love, you have to love and you have to have faith in God. Without it, everything else is vain, is void. It doesn't mean anything. In our lives, we can change people. We can change things. But it is up to us. I'm thankful today. And my faith isn't always where it needs to be. But I do work on it. This sermon worked because it's a sermon to me. It's not just a sermon to you. It's a sermon to me too. I need to work on my own faith. We can change lives. We can do so much greater than we do. Now let's go back to our nation. When the church fixes itself, our nation can be rebuilt. Our nation can be fixed. But it's got to start here. And not just in this church, but in every church in the surrounding counties in the United States. Churches have to change. There has to be a faith. There has to be a trust in God. Right now there's a trust in God that we don't have. There's a faith in God that we do not have. And that has to change in order to change the nation. In your life and in your own heart today, you can ask yourself, if you're not saved, you need to be saved. And if you are saved, working on faith is important. And we all need to work on our faith. But in closing, thank you for listening. Thank you for praying for me. It means a lot. Work on your faith. Don't forget, when you leave here today, Think about it. When God tells you to do something, when God tells you to speak to that person on the side of the road, when he tells you to speak to a person and stand in front of you in line, have faith. When what God's told you to do it. You're not gonna you will be rewarded. You may not ever see it on this side, and you may not ever know about it on this side. If he does reward you, you may never know about it. But he's gonna bless you. He will reward you for it. You just have to have the faith. Whatever he tells you to do, what the sister says she's doing to that boy over in Ecuador, that took faith. It's not always easy to get out and speak to somebody. But don't forget that when you leave here, when it seems hard, have faith. Know that God's going to work it out. Know that whatever he's calling you to do in your life, whatever he tells you to, wherever he tells you to go, whatever he tells you to do, he will bless you. He will take care of you. He will give you what you need. Thank you.